In this video, we're going to focus on how to create a simple ROI calculator. So if we change this here, you can see here everything starts to change. Here this starts to change, but also the values here start to change. And if I do key down, you can see here it quickly changes here, and these values as well. Everything starts to change. If I make this only 100, you can see this changes, and if I change this to 500 here, you can see all of this nicely change along. So let's start to look how we can create this interactivity in our chart to create our own return on investment calculator. In this video, we'll start to focus on how to create a ROI calculator in Chart.js. So what we're going to do is we're going to create in Chart.js a chart that will directly respond on the inputs and will show a certain value, which is in this case our ROI calculator, or in other words, our return on investment calculator. So to do this, let's start immediately. All we need to do is, first of all, we have to copy this code here. We're going to copy all of this. And once we copy this, make sure you go to chartjs3.com getting started, and you can find this specific video here if you want to understand what it does. So once you have this, we're going to cut out this chunk of title here, and I'm just putting it in here. This is for myself. Save that and then refresh, and there we are. So now we have our basic here. But what we want here in this case is a pie chart. So I'm going to convert it into a pie chart and remove all excess data. We only have 2 data points that we're going to work with. So in here, I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to change the name of this. This would be the investment, and this would be the profit. Once we did this, I'm going to remove everything here as well, except for these 2. And I will just take a color. In this case, you could see here there's blue and green. That's the 2 I want, so that is suitable for our case. So this is the blue one here. I will just maintain that here. And the green one would just be that. There we are. So I'm going to remove all others, and I'm going to copy this. Just delete the comma here, but copy everything else. These 2 colors will be pasted in here, except that this will be solid. And I realize that they should be both solid. That will be probably more better. Remove this border width, not necessary. If I save this now, we're not yet done here. We still have to make here a pie. So it's a pie chart, and remove all of these here. If you don't do this, you will see what you get. Refresh here, you get this big chart. Don't worry, we're going to work on that. You can see here these scale lines that we need to remove. These are not necessary in our case. So I'm going to save this again. Ignore that. Refresh. Alright. So there we are. So now we have our pie chart. But what I want to do here is I want to reduce the size of it. So I'm going to put it, instead of 700, I'm going to make it 400. Refresh. And that is beautiful. So now we have 2 options here. So what I want to do now is start to work with the inputs. We're going to put in here basically 3 inputs. And after that, we're going to work with the values that should be shown on here. Alright. So what are the inputs we have? Well, we have another 1 input here. Input type would be number. And we can put in a label here that would be very appropriate as well. And in this label, this one would be basically the investment amount. Investment amount. And here I will just say here a break. I'm not going to spend much time on the design. But if you want to do more on design, I would highly recommend do Bootstrap. Probably just to save some time. So we have investment amount and we have the profit amount. Alright. So if I save this here, we have these. There you are. 1 more. And then we're done here basically. And then we put in here the duration or investment length will be in years. Let me say here years. Alright, so once I do this here, I want to make sure here the years can be with steps. What I mean by steps is maybe on 1.5 years for what I have here. So we can say a step equal 0.1, meaning that if we refresh this here now, we go up 1. So for example, we want a half year is 0.5, 1 year, 1.2, etc., etc. Alright, so we have these options here. So once we have this, what we're going to do now is basically work on one item, which would be the results. And the results will be here below. I'm going to make a table. So what we're going to do in here, so we're going to put in here the table. So the table, very simple here, table. Here we have a table row, and what are we going to put in the table row is basically the values that we are expecting or what we want to show. Alright, so let's copy this. We have here two tables, or two columns, sorry, then another row, and another row. I just have to check what are in those rows. So we have the first one would be the investment amount. The second one would be the amount itself. So I'm going to put in here a dollar sign, and then here I'm going to put a span. And the reason why I'm going to put a span in here, we're going to put an ID with the value that we put in here above. And then the next one would be the, not the investment amount, but the profit amount. Same structure here almost. I'm going to copy this, put it in there. And here finally you have another one. This structure will have a percentage, because this would be the ROI, return on investment in percentage, I guess. And then finally we have here a specific term, which is what's called the annualized return, meaning how much would you earn on a yearly basis. Depending on your length, we'll calculate how much it is, how much is the interest or the earnings increase per year based on multiple factors. Basically, this is a financial term here, which would be interest on interest, etc., etc. So it's quite deep. I will not spend too much time on what this is. If you would like to know, please check that out. Although the formula is complicated, but once we do it, you will see, and then you get a different number compared to whatever is here. Alright, so what are we going to do now is, first of all, let's put in here some IDs. And this ID will be basically the investment amount. Investment amount. Alright. We have another one. Will be an ID. And this ID will be the profit amount. And finally we have here the years or length, doesn't matter. Alright. So this here will eventually be set also in here. So I'm going to give you an ID so that we can later on pinpoint this specific point here. So I will say here, just to make it simple, I will say here a cell, and this cell would be investment, and you can give it anything you want. And then we have another one, this will be cell profit, basically comparing to this one here or matching with that, and this will be cell year. Oh, sorry, this is not year, but maybe we should have one for the year, I realize. So we're going to make here year or duration. And this one here, I'll have to check what we're going to use for this term here. Alright, but basically it could be maybe ROI, or cell ROI, that will be fine. ROI is basically in percentage, that's a formula, that is the profit divided by the investment amount, and then multiplied by 100. Alright, so annualized returns, this one will be another one as well. I'm going to copy this here, just put it in there, that will be percentage, and this I will say here, this will be annualized. Alright, just make sure you spell it correctly. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a function here. So I'm going to do a function, and this function will be triggered. So how will we trigger this? Well, basically this function will be triggered the moment we put in any values in here. And we have here right now a default value, so I'm going to work with those default values eventually. To make it very simple, I'm going to use simple values here. Alright. First one, what we're going to do here, let's put in here value. This is 2.5. Since I've worked with this value previously, I'm going to use that one that's easiest for me. Profit amount is $1,000 here, for example. And then we have here a value, investment amount would be 9,000. Alright, so I'm going to make this steady here. We have this. We put it in here, and this will be 1,000. So these are just all hard coded. They will eventually adjust the moment we soft code them. Alright, so that's what we're going to do. Return on investment here, this would be, if I'm not mistaken, this is the one I work with. Alright, and then you have the annualized return. It should be 4.3% something. Alright, so we're going to work with that. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create a function. So this function would be the calculator. All right, and then we have also another function where we update the chart. So what I will do is I will say function update chart, and this update chart will depend on whatever we put in those inputs. So we say here, this I will do here nothing for now, but what I want to do, I want to chain them together, or basically link them together, meaning that when this function is triggered, it will also get this function. So what I will do is I'll just copy this calculator here and just say, all right, if this function has been activated, trigger this function as well. So later on, this is function 2 basically, which is this one here. That's what we're going to work on. But this one here we should have input of function, whatever. All right, so I want to show you this just to make sure you understand what I'm doing here. Say console log. Yes, it works. All right, so we do this, but how will we trigger this? Well, we're going to grab this one here, and then we go here on the inputs. All of these inputs we're going to say here on change. I'm doing on change. You can do on click, on input, or well, I guess on click would not be appropriate here. On key up, on etc. Or on input. But I would not recommend it. I would say do on change. So basically on change, at the moment when you click on this and you click away, at that moment it recognizes the change. Because if you would do on key up, it will see every value that you type in, and it will start to jump very much. Especially if like 6 or 7 values or 3, 4, it will not make sense. So what I want to do is here is just a gradual adjustment. The moment I click away or press enter here to confirm the input, at that moment the chart will adjust, and of course at that moment the function will be triggered. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm triggering the onChange chart that will also link to the other calculator function. So we're going to do that one here. So we have this. Next one here. Alright. And finally on the input of the year. So if I save this now and refresh, let's open up the developer tab. And now if I key up, alright, but if I type in, pay attention here, nothing happens until I press enter, bam, there you are, then it works. Or if I click away, so if I say here 100 and then 1000 and then click away, there you are. So this will only change once. So perfect. And the same will be here. If I key up, you can see it works, key down, it works, and this one as well, key up, it goes with steps of 0.1, it works. Beautiful. So it means that this is all nicely connected. So the thing what we want to do now is basically work on 2 items. First of all, we have this here, but we want to make sure that this is connected. So I'm going to create here a constant. And this constant will be these IDs here. The investment amount. So we say this investment amount equals document dot get element by ID investment amount, and then of course we have not only investment amount, we have 2 more items that we want. So let's see what's the ID name. You can see here that's the profit amount. All right, so we say profit amount, get ID of profit amount, and then here we have the ID of years, so or duration. Probably duration is more better or appropriate name, but that's all right for now. All right, so we have this here now. So now what we want to do is we want to put this by default in here. So I'm going to grab this, but remember this is the ID only, not the value itself. So I'm going to say get this dot value. All right, and we will do the same here. And this will not be the investment amount, but the profit amount. All right, weekly sales. Well, this should be the ROI calculator. All right, so if I save this now and refresh, we have now, you can see here, we have investment of 9,000 and the value of profits 1,000, which is matching with this nicely. All right, so we have this here, and I'm going to put in some horizontal lines just to make it a bit more easier to read. So here on the tables, we say here HR line, and then maybe another break, just for the sake of it. And then here we have the canvas, and then we say here HR line. There we are. And maybe another break. Refresh. There you are. So that starts to look nicely. All right, so I see this. I see we have a double percentage here that needs to be solved, but we are very close to what we need. So we have everything here, and this, of course, right now is not connected. So let's connect this right now on the function where we update it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the update chart function here. So basically, we'll say here the following. We're going to get the array. So to get the array and then replace whatever is our data points with the new data points that we inserted here. So we say here how to get there is from my chart, then to config, and from config we go to data, and from data we go to data sets, and then in the data sets we have the data. All right, so that's what we're going to do here. We say here my chart dot config dot data sets. All right, very important here with data set. This is an array in itself. You can see here this is an array because of the curly for the brackets here, indicating that this is an array. And in this array we have another array, so we have this here, but basically we want only pinpoint this array, and this array is array number 0, so we put in bracket 0 like that. All right, that's why we have this, and then we say dot data. Then we say this equals the adjusted values that we have. So that's an array itself. And then we get here, you can see this item here, or basically we can copy this again, because this is again same here. There we are. All right, and then we want to update this. We say here my chart.update. There we are. Save, refresh. All right, so now we go up and let's see what's going on. There you are. You can see it's starting to adjust. There you are. Nicely. So if I change this, then I say here 10,000, enter. There we are. And here, this is a profit of 1,000. Let's make the profit now only 10. Enter, and you can see now it changes here. This is a very, very minuscule piece here. Let's make this 100. Enter. There you are. So that starts to look slightly more visible. But of course, let's change this back to 9,000. Investment amount. All right, 9,000. You can see it hardly changes anything. So if I do this again, there we are. All right, so we're done here. But of course, what is still not working is these items here, and we have to fine tune later on this. We get the calculator for the annualized return as well. All right, let's do that now. So we're going to work on this specific part here. The first thing what I want to do is I want to just double check here the percentage. All right, you can see here the percentage in there. Let's remove that one. So we save that one, or at least we solve one item now. And now let's get this one here, the investment amount. So this will be quite simplistic. Basically, we're going to grab it and we insert it. How will we insert this? Just in here. We have this cell value that is an ID, which is very useful for us now. It's easy to pinpoint them. So what we're going to do here is basically we will say a constant cell investment equals document.get element by ID. All right, and then we just get the same cell value, make sure these are in quotations, and then we say here the following. We say this dot inner text. We'll make sure to use text, and the inner text will be what exactly? Well, the cell investment should display this, or their output. The output of this will be this number here. So we can just grab that one immediately. We can see here we have the investment amount dot value. We can just grab that. There we are. Same we will do for the input amount here. So let's do that as well. We can just copy this. I guess we can almost copy these two. Then we say here investment would be the amount here. This would be probably the cell profit. Let's look. All right, there we are. We have the cell profit. Cell profit equals cell profit, and then here cell profit, and this will be the not the investment amount, but if I'm not mistaken, the profit amount. There you are. Copy this. All right, so if I paste this now and refresh, let's see what happens if I change this. Let's make this 10,000. Enter. You can see here it changes, and it also changes here nicely. So if I make this now 2,000. Enter, you can see this is starting to change, and the value here below is changing. All right, so let's go here and let's work on the duration. And I see the duration is 2.5%, which is incorrect. It should be years. All right, so let's fix that as well. duration here, this should just be in years. All right. So how do we do this one? Well, simply same story here. Constant year cell. Then we say document dot get element by ID. Quotation here, and then we say year cell dot inner text equals, and then we grab the ID of year. So let's see here. Oh, that's years apparently. So I'm going to grab this years dot value because I want to get the value out of it. So if I refresh now and I change this, there we are, nicely. So what happened is basically everything here changes automatically altogether because they're all triggered by the same function or they're all connected to the same function. All right, so now let's do the return on investment, which is basically this divided by that, and then multiplied by 100. All right, so what we're going to do here is, first of all, let's get the ROI cell. That's the cell name. Constant ROI cell equals document dot get element by ID here, and there we are. So then what we want to do here, ROI dot inner text equals what exactly? Well, in this case we have a formula, so I guess what we need to do here is make a quick constant is ROI, and this ROI will just calculate our item. So basically, how do you calculate your return on investment? The answer is simple. It is profit divided by invested amount. Very straightforward, and then multiplied by 100. All right. So that's what we're going to do here. What we need to get here is the profit amount. Let's put it there. Then divide by the invested amount. All right. And then before we multiply by 100, I want to give this priority. So it will first calculate this before it multiplies. And once we have that, we can then say ROI here. This equals ROI. All right, so we have to check here. Once we save this, let's check if this works. It might give some unexpected results. All right, so that's one of the unexpected results. Although we are very close to it, the return on investment is moving. And if I go down here, there we are as well. What we need to solve here is basically this item here. We need to remove the floating numbers. So I'll just quickly check what is the term here for the floating numbers. All right, that is very simple. That's the to fix. That's the one. So I say to fixed, and then of course value number 2. So luckily I already remembered it. There we are. So let's see now what happens. As you can see here, as we go up, it starts to show. If we go down, it starts to show as well nicely. All right. So this is beautiful. So now we're done with this one. So it's time for the final one. The final one is eventually the cell annualized return. You can skip this if you don't really understand what it is, but basically it would say how much would you earn on a yearly basis if you would calculate compounded interest, because compounded interest is a part of it. We have interest on interest and how much you would earn. So this is basically how it works, and it's quite complicated to calculate. Well, the understanding of that is slightly more complicated, but if you just remember compound interest, you probably understand what I'm talking about. All right, so what we're going to do here is what we need to do is, first of all, we make a constant, then we say cell annualized. And well, what we can do here is we can just say your document get element by ID, and then we say here cell annualized. Very straightforward. There we have it. So then what we have to do here now is basically calculate here, and this one works with an exponent, and this is very important. And if you don't know what an exponent is, don't worry. It's like but it multiplies itself. It's quite complicated to explain from now, but in JavaScript, the exponent formula is 2 times an asterisk. So instead of multiplier is 1 asterisk, we have twice. All right. So that's what we're going to do now. So basically, this is the formula. So we have the amount, or basically the profit divided by invested for invested amount. So what you will do here is, so once you have this, and this is, I'm going to show you first the formula before we continue on. And then we have the exponent, and the exponent is this one here. It's basically number 1, and number 1 here in this case is referring to how many years. And the reason I'm doing number 1 is because we're working with the years on the input here. Let me double check years. If you would have days, you would have to play around here. You say 365. But if you don't have days, it is a year. So in this case, it's 1. All right. If you are working with month, 12 months here is the starting point. So we say here 1, then divide by years, or length of years, in this case the duration, and then we do minus 1. All right, so this is the formula in short. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. Luckily we already have most of these values here, except what we're missing is this one here, the return on investment. You can see a profit and divide by return on investment. So this is the one that we can grab. We put it in here. All right, so once we have this, so let's call this our annualized. I will give it a constant equals annualized return, and then this equals the profit amount dot value divided by investment amount dot value, and then we have an exponent with 1 divided by length of years. Length of years in this case, of course, luckily we have them, is the years dot value. And then it was deduct by 1 on this one here. Alright, so basically to even out that one. So once we have this, then we can say here cell.inner text equals annualized return. Alright, save that, and let's see what happens now. So there we are, we have something here, so let's change this. Alright, so I see I am having a mistake here. This is becoming a negative item. So this is a percentage, and this is a negative percent for negative value right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check what I did here, because I know I had this correctly. So maybe we're missing out on something. So let's start to explore what we need. Alright, I realized I did a tiny mistake here. It's not the profit amount here, because the annualized return is based on the amount that you receive back. Meaning that you have the investment amount, but you also have the amount that you invested plus profit. So we have the profit. So how much would you get back? It is not 1,000, but you get $10,000 back instead of your invested amount of 9,000 plus 1,000 profit. Alright, so if I do this one here, this needs to be changed. So what we need to do here is just a quick calculation. And this calculation is the following. We're going to say here amount returned, or returned amount, which is a constant. And then we say here equal the following. We say profit amount plus investment amount. And then we say here will be equal to that. Alright, so if I save this now, let's see what we get now as a return. Alright, we're getting closer. At least we're on a positive, but there's still a mistake here. So let's see what's going on here. So we have this divided by the amount invested. Alright, so I'll just double check this one more time. Alright, so let me double check here. So for some strange reason, I am getting a wrong value, so we have to double check, but this is officially the formula. And it should show here 0.4, or basically 4.3%. That is what I'm expecting, but for some reason we're getting 15% here. So, but this should be the value here. Alright, so let's start to explore here. So this works. So what I'm going to do is very simple. Replace the values that we have here. So I'm going to copy this here. I'll just say here constant. And this constant will be, again, the annualized. I'm going to just remove this. Let me just say here, I'm going to copy all of this. Equals this. Alright. So 10,000, which should be the return amount, profit plus that. Am I correct? So let's do two things here. I want to confirm this. So console.log, just to check, because probably we might have some unknown issue here. Just put in space between. All right, refresh. All right, so if I select now something, all right, that explains here our issue. All right, then I figure out already what we need to do. So in here, what happens here, it is not seeing it as a value, or what do you call it, an integer. So I'm going to force it into an integer. So we say here parse int, and parse means basically make something readable. So we're going to force it into a readable integer, which is a number value. And I'm using integer. You can also use float. It's up to you. So then, if I save this and I refresh, I might expect now the correct number. All right, so we still have an issue. Fair enough. However, here, let's double check. Now it is correct because it shows you the total value, or the total received amount, which is 10,000. All right, so that's done. Next one here is the 9,000. So I want to double check here, are we getting the right value here? It will be the investment amount. So the investment amount is this one here. I expect this, unless this is also not readable. So let's save that, refresh. All right, 9,000. So there we are. We're getting closer, I guess. So we have this one done as well. All right. So here, next one will be eventually this specific item. And maybe that is the issue that doesn't read the value here. So what I want to do here is year's value. Check as well with the year's value, and then here double check as well. Save that, refresh. Alright, so that does work nicely. What I want to do here, just to be sure, it is not an integer here, you can see, or a number format. So I'm going to convert it into a number format just to make sure that we're not missing out on anything. What I'm going to do here is year's value. Basically here we can say parse float. Parse float. There we are. So now let's see. Alright, we're still having a slightly different value here. That means that we're still working on something. So I'm going to check what is the issue here. Alright, so that might be it. We have this here, we have the annual here. Let's see. Oh, this was our annual, sorry. So I realized that this needs to be just adjusted to that. Annualized return equals that. Well, what we can do probably is, let's copy this. Just put in here. Just to make not so many confusion. And then let's save that again. We're going to probably remove this later on. And let's see if we get the value. Alright, we get the value as expected. That is nice. So now I can remove this annual here. Alright, so that was slightly confusing, I realized, because we have a lot of items. This one is all working nicely. So what I want to do now is the final item that you can see here, because as you can see, if I increase this here, this is just not what we want. It needs to be multiplied by 100, and then we need to fix again, fix 2. Getting only 2 decimals or 1 decimal for percentage is fine. And then we say here, first of all, multiply by 100. And then we say here, no, that needs to be done separate, so we say constant. Annualized percentage, I guess. Percentage. Alright, and that will be equal. I'm just going to cut this out, put it here, multiply by 100, and then we say here annualized return dot fixed to fix, and then here value 1 only. So you only get one decimal. So refresh this now. Let's see if we have. Alright, we have an issue. What is exactly the issue here? I was not expecting. Oh, of course. This here, percentage. There we go. Refresh. Now, there we are. Alright, you can see here at 2.5, it is 3. Everything is matching here. And now if you start to change this here, beautiful. Do this 10,000. You can see it jumps. Even these values here are starting to change. If I make this 4,000 plus enter, you can see this changes. And here, everything matches as well. So now we have a nice calculator here. And of course, you can make this very nice with Bootstrap. So this was finally how to do this.